from Mike, and this came on the website. How do I proceed in getting my firearm privileges reinstated after my nonviolent felony charges and no other violent crimes on the record? There's a lot baked into this question that probably would require more information to give a definitive answer. So I'm going to sort of answer it generally. Typically speaking, if you have a felony that is punishable by more than 1 year, then that's a firearm exclusion, by federal law. That's a federal firearm exclusion. And by the way, there are also individual state law requirements that come into play. So don't think just because you pass on the federal side, you get by on the state side or vice versa. You have to cover both. But typically speaking, let's say you've got a disqualifying felony, and it's a nonviolent felony, as this one is, and you want to get your firearm rights restored. Well, you may already have firearm rights. They may not have been necessarily suspended if the prison sentence for the particular offense didn't exceed a year, and it didn't involve something called a family or household member, think domestic violence, or other non-qualifying offense, or whatever you would say. Then you might already have some firearm rights. It might be tricky to go past the background checks because sometimes there's different requirements where they come up or you get flagged, and it gets a little bit more dicey to deal with those background checks. But it may not be a disqualifier. Now, let's say that it is, though. Typically, the fastest path to getting your firearm rights restored is something called an expungement. And in Ohio, we have two things. We have record sealing and record expungement. Both would be sufficient most of the time to get you back on track to being able to possess firearms. How do you do that? Well, if it's an offense that can be expunged or sealed, typically nonviolent offenses, lower level felonies and misdemeanors in Ohio, it's easier than ever in Ohio to expunge or seal your record. You go apply, you file a petition with the court, you have a hearing. The standard is basically what is the government's interest in having this maintained on your record, balanced against your interest in having it removed from your record. Generally, if you're trying to get jobs and you can't, you're trying to get an apartment and you can't, that's enough. Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, people are able to get their record, if they're eligible, sealed or expunged. Sometimes they're not. Now, if it's something that can't be sealed or expunged, it gets a lot more complex. It gets a lot more difficult and maybe even impossible to get your firearms rights back, particularly, say, for instance, federal felonies. You can't really get those expunged or sealed, and that may be a disqualifier forever. To the extent there is any way around that, I will punt this off. I will defer. Believe it or not, I don't know everything, but I've got a very good close colleague professionally who does, and I work with this gentleman, Derek DeBrosse, and you know him on YouTube as the Gun Lawyer. Look him up. I'll leave a link if I can, where he's addressed this topic and many others in his YouTube channel. There's also another podcast I do with Derek called Munitions Podcast, and you can check that out. But he's the guy. He is the guy that would know, and he's the guy that can help for the more complicated things. And when people call me and it's complex, I call Derek, and we work together to try to get people restored. For whatever it's worth, I believe strongly in the Second Amendment and people's Second Amendment rights. And in fact, all constitutional rights, I don't discriminate. I think they're all valuable, and we should all try to protect them as much as we can. And that means if you can get your firearm rights restored, let's do it, as long as you can do it safely and legally. If you've got your question, if you got your own question about this or any other topic, lawyertalkpodcast.com, leave it in the comments, where we are coming at you off the record, but on the air each and every week, at least until now. Hey, Steve Palmer here from Lawyer Talk. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Check us out, all our social media. Like, share, interact, ask your own questions. We're here for you.